I'm Tina, and this is my story. Growing up as a little girl, I learned a lot about the Lord. I was really close to Him growing up. Up into high school, I used to be really on fire for the Lord and bringing a lot of friends to church. The youth pastor would have me speak up front, just from the number of friends that I'd bring in every week. And was in a relationship that after 4 years ended, and I believe kind of dealt with it in unhealthy ways and started experimenting with drugs. And I remember the first time I used meth, it kind of taking a hold of me, and I never stopped out of 8.5 years. But at the beginning, when I started using, it was like made me very vulnerable and weak. And when the enemy came, he was very, very strong and seducing, and kind of enticed me with all these drugs. And I got really into it pretty heavy, and got into a relationship at the first year of using drugs that became very abusive. And I believe I could have lost my life once or twice from the abuse. And it just consumed me, enslaved me, bondage. After 4.5 years of using that, I became pregnant. And by the grace of God, I was able to stay clean during my pregnancy, and while I nursed my son. And at the same time, my baby's father went into prison, and about a year, my son was 1.5 years, and his father was released, and he started getting back into the drugs again. And that relationship broke off, which was, again, very hard to deal with, and so I started using again. And it just got really bad. I mean, the whole time during using, I would just feel totally just consumed by the addiction. It was very, very heavy. It would seem like its presence was with me everywhere I'd go. Everything I'd do, it was always there with me, and I'd feel so smothered. I believed God was with me the whole time, but there were nights that I would with God just weep to Him and ask Him for deliverance and to help me. And I didn't want to do what I was doing, but it seemed that part of me that I fed so much was way more stronger than my spiritual person, and so I couldn't fight it. And it went on for years and years, and it got to the point where I started using Oxycontins, and occasionally I would use heroin. And it just took me to this place that was so bad that I was dealing big business with the drugs, and ended up I was with someone that I was getting drugs from, and he was being looked for by the cops, and we ended up being set up. And the cops, out of nowhere, without any notice or alarm, just started ramming us off the roads and ended up shooting at us. And they were just 10 to 15 feet in front of us, and they were shooting at us. And I remember watching down the barrel of this gun and wondering why the windshield wasn't breaking or why I wasn't being shot. I don't know how they could have missed. And come to find out, earlier that morning, my mother, who's close to the Lord, she had a vision that I was laying dead on my bed in my room, and my mom had to pray to bring me back to life, that God would raise me from the dead. And she thought to herself, wow, do I really have to call into work today because my daughter's dead? And here, a couple hours later, I was being shot at by the cops, and not understanding why the cops being so close, why I wasn't being shot. And the driver that was driving, he did end up getting hit and was shot, and had to go to the hospital. But in the back of the cop car, I was like, okay, this isn't what God has planned for me. This isn't my future. I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I have a son at home that I care about. was not worth it. And something that day broke. And I had been praying for that for years and years, and I felt something that day break, and I didn't know how to manage it properly. I was alone by myself. I kept all my secrets to myself. I never told anyone, and I think that was one of the main problems, because I can't do it on my own. I can't do it on my own faith in God. The enemy's more powerful than that, and you need people to help you. And so dealing with the after effects of an 8-year lifestyle, I handled it wrongly by using more of the drugs and the heroin to kind of numb myself, and being depressed, and I couldn't play with my son. That would really tear me up inside. It would break my heart. And I thought that if I moved away, by withdrawing myself from the situation, I could get better, and it wouldn't work. When I come back into town, I would end up using, and wouldn't be able to get past it. And I then realized that I was powerless to it, and I could not do it on my own, and I had to learn a new way of thinking and a new way of living. And so I just prayed to God that He would lead me to a treatment center that was Christian faith-based, and that would be God's plan for me. And so God led me to this place, the Center for Counseling and Health Resources, and come to find out, it was a treatment facility that cost $32,000, an amount that neither my parents or I had. And so we just kind of prayed about it with the Lord, and God was working behind the scenes, and ended up God blessed me with a full sponsorship to the program. And so I went and stayed at a treatment facility, and was able to work one-on-one with the counselor about my abuse. And I have never been able to really deal with those appropriately, and I always coped in the wrong ways. Well, with my counselor, I was able to talk about that and let God heal that. And my mom had a dream while I was there that Anna, this lady named Anna, called her, which we looked up in the biblical. That means gracious. God is grace. And she called my mom on the phone in this dream and said, "Oh, don't worry, your daughter's in the operation room, and we're gonna heal. We're gonna give her a new heart." And my mom was crying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." So she went into the hospital to meet the doctor, and the doctor ended up being Benny Hinn and the healing ministry. And Benny Hinn was laughing with her, and he said, "No, we're not giving her a new heart. We're healing her old one." And that was really encouraging that my mom would have that dream. And I learned a lot of things about my addiction, and was able to have that addict self become smaller and smaller, while my wise self was being fed, my spiritual self was being fed more and more. And I've gone now 60 days clean. On Tuesday it was 60 days clean, and I have not gone this long sober in the last 8.5 years. And God is so good. It's like now when I'm sober, it just comes naturally. I'm not struggling and fighting it as I was before. And God is so good, and I just want to give back now to the Lord and share my story and my testimony that you can be free. You can be free, and God has people in this world that have His tools and His gifts that are for us to be helped, and we can't do it on our own. The enemy is strong, and we just need to reach out to those people and to just be honest, to be open, to have no secrets, because that's what the enemy is. The enemy likes to keep things in the dark, in the secret places. That's where he has power. And as soon as you speak those thoughts and speak those secrets, it brings light to that, and that's when it loses its power. And God, you can have tremendous breakthrough. And don't lose your faith in Him. My 8.5 years, I still held on to Him, and here I am now, and God's got a big plan for my life. And I want to start by sharing that with you guys. Thank you. Hi, I'm Tina, and I was once a slave to addiction and abuse, but now I am unquestionably free.